Pirates go a long ways out of their way to make themselves look a whole lot scarier than they often really were. We're going to talk about that and more fun pirate fun facts today while we sketch this little peg legged dude. So let's just turn the page and get started. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning on a Friday. It's Friday morning. Oh, how I love Fridays. Friday mornings at 5:30 in the morning is when I like to do a little thing where I pull a random object from the random object randomizer, a toy from the toy box, if you will, and I draw it and we talk about it. And today's random object from the random object randomizer is a peg-legged pirate. It actually says that on the bottom of the toy, peg-legged pirate. So I'm not being cruel.
He doesn't look like a swashbuckling pirate.
He doesn't look like a swashbuckling pirate. You're right. He doesn't, but I bet he's meant to look mean because of his peg leg.
Probably.
One of the things I thought we'd talk about today. This is the third time in a year that this guy has come up, and the first time he came up, we talked about prosthetics. We talked about how rare prosthetics actually were, and the likelihood that there would be a peg-legged pirate. And then we talked about how John Lewis Stevenson didn't actually write anything about a peg-legged pirate in Treasure Island, and that was just something that kind of caught on in Hollywood, where they gave him a peg leg to make him look more piratey, give him a reason to be cranky, I guess. But we have never really talked about how pirates put on airs, and how that pirates putting on airs has translated into comedy gold for the movies. Like, for instance, The Princess Bride. In the Princess Bride, the dread pirate Robert Wesley is the love interest. He's the hero of the show. He's our princess's love interest, and he is also the dread pirate Robert. And what had happened was he was sailing to earn his fortune so that he could afford to marry Buttercup, and his ship was seized by the dread pirate Robert, who leaves no men alive, so she thought he was dead. And instead of killing Wesley, the dread pirate Robert took pity on Wesley and befriended him and taught him swordsmanship. And that needs to come down a little further. And taught him swordsmanship. Good night, Wes. Good job, Wesley. Sleep well. I'll most likely kill you in the morning, was the common phrase heard throughout the movie. And when it came time for the dread pirate Robert to retire, he reveals the fact that he is not the dread pirate Robert. The pirate before him was the dread pirate Robert, had taken him in and trained him in the ways, and then They came into port and they hired a new crew. And the captain stayed on his first mate and started calling the captain the Dread Pirate Robert, Captain Robert. Until the whole new crew believed that the captain was really the Dread Pirate Robert. So the new captain did the exact same thing to Wesley. Took on a whole new crew, started calling him Captain Robert in front of everybody so everybody would be afraid of him. And he says the whole thing is the name. Nobody's going to be afraid. You have to be the Dread Pirate Robert, because nobody's going to be afraid of the Dread Pirate Wesley. And the whole thing's the name. And while that comes up as a pretty funny joke in the movie, it's not far from the truth. Morning, Char. Morning, Rick. We did like your table last night. We're in the chat. My mom's in the chat telling Rick. We had a show last night, the Artistic Biker Live. And part of the Artistic Biker Live is I like to show what other people are working on. And Pamela sent in pictures of Rick's table. Rick is making an end table that folds out into a computer desk or some other kind of convertible table. But it's really well built. She sent pictures of that for what's on your easel last night. So in the chat, we're giving him accolades.
He said it's a first of 3.
First of 3. But a nice looking table too. Anyway, so it turns out that the pirates putting on airs like that is not unheard of. For instance, Blackbeard used to weave slow-burning fuses into his beard and light them before showing up to intimidate ships that they had just pulled up on. So his enemies would see this terrifying hulk of a man with smoke billowing around his face, illuminated from underneath, to make him look demonic, and help make him look 10 times more frightening than he actually is. Wild success as a pirate because of it. So it's not unheard of to have things like the Dread Pirate Robert or Blackbeard to try to make themselves appear more frightening than they actually are. That's actually an ongoing theme in pirate comedies, like the Pirates of Penzance, for instance. When these big burly guys decide to become pirates, but they make the decision to not harm orphans, women and orphans. And so every ship they pull over pretends to be a ship full of women and orphans. Every ship they try to board pretends to be full of women and orphans so that the pirates won't harm them. So these big burly pirates being softies is an ongoing theme in comedy. That's enough. That's enough pencil. That's enough lines to see what I've got going on there. Let's get all that pencil out of there so we can come back with some color. Come back with some shading. My favorite part. Last night I did an illustration of a cat and I forgot to remove the pencil marks. Subtle hint. Never seen the Pirates of Penzance. I've heard of the Pirates of Penzance. Have you ever seen the Pirates of Penzance?
No.
Ma?
No. No.
You never performed it in school, never saw it?
No.
I wonder if we can get a copy of it to watch. I wonder if you can find a copy of it to watch on Amazon or something. I've never seen it. Have you guys in the chat seen the Pirates of Penzance?
What you're saying again?
Pirates? Pirates? We're talking about pirates.
I know it's in
Pirates? Pirates of Penzance. Glare in my paint. Can't see what I'm doing. Is that where the I am the very model of a modern major general? Is that where that song came from? Pirates of Penzance? You'd think I'd know that being a show choir kid. Here go artistic biker. Big burly biker dude. I was a show choir kid.
You can watch it on YouTube.
Alright, we'll do that. I may do that if I have a slow moment at work.
I think you can get it on Amazon Prime.
I'm not paying for it.
I don't know if it's free or not.
No. Maybe I should pay for it. It wasn't my intention to pay for it. This is my favorite part of the process. This is the part of the process that brings depth to the whole thing. Up until this point, it's just lines on a page. But this point actually gives depth to the whole object. Turns it into a three-dimensional object. Gives the whole thing shape. And it is my favorite part. I probably never told you guys that before. Up until now, it's just lines on a page. Tough arting. Woo! This is all in shade on this side. There's just some darker shades. Around that area right there. Yeah, I've never seen the Pirates of Penzance. They're talking in the chat about the feeling of accomplishment when you get something done. I'm not sure I've felt that in a while. Let me dry this real quick and we'll come back with some color. Soft-hearted pirates. Everybody expects pirates to be vicious and mean, and soft-hearted pirates is comedic gold. That's why you have in Pirates of the Caribbean, you have the two guys that are they wear the dresses. The one guy's missing an eyeball, and he's chasing his eyeball down the ship, trying to say parlay.
You know, you either see pirates as mean and tough, or you see, or they're a love object.
Oh yeah, the women love the baddies. That's Dread Pirate Wesley. And the funny, we were talking about the Dread Pirate Robert from Princess Bride. The funny thing about that is that the movie is based on a book that is nothing at all like the movie, and we find out if you read the producer, if you read the producer of the movie, his discussion of why he wanted to make the movie and how what the movie's actually about. His grandfather, whenever he got sick, his grandfather, just like in the beginning of the movie, if you've never seen the movie, the boy gets sick, and his grandfather, every time his mother would get sick, his grandfather would read the book, the Princess Bride, to her every day until she started feeling better. And so he comes over to do the same thing with the boy, his grandson. And his grandson is like, I don't want to read your boring old book. And then he gets into it, and it turns out to be a pretty exciting book. But in the producer's memoirs, he talks about how he later tried to read the book as an adult, and it's the most boring book ever. And it turns out that his grandfather was skipping all the boring stuff, all the politics and all the conversations. His grandfather was skipping all that, just moving on up to the swashbuckling sword fights and the mystery and intrigue, and leaving out the boring parts. And so every time his grandfather would read it to him, he thought it was a wonderfully exciting story. And it turns out that it's actually quite boring, especially from a child's perspective. The movie's not really about the book, Princess Bride, as much as the movie is about the grandfather reading the story to his grandson. Going with that, I had a purpose. Oh, but he took out all the politics and the mean spiritedness and just left us with comedic gold, and made the movie a swashbuckling movie. But that's like, to me, that's like the Count of Monte Cristo. There is no swashbuckling in the Count of Monte Cristo. The book, The Count of Monte Cristo, is extremely boring. It's full of mystery and intrigue, but you think you're about to read this book about sword fighting and heroic bravery and all kinds of cool stuff like that. But truthfully, none of that's in the book. The book is all politics and drama, with very little action. So to what you said about how pirates are either the love interest or the villain or the comedic relief, that's exactly true. That's exactly true.
You have to wonder how many paperback books were so because had this swashbuckling guy before.
Oh yeah, it's required reading.
Absolutely.
County Monte Cristo is required reading in high school, or used to be. But I mean, let me dry this real quick. Hang on just a minute. Yeah, the pirate swashbuckling and pirate comedy and pirate villainy are all completely different genres. I mean, you look at Robert De Niro playing the lightning pirate in Stardust. Captain Shakespeare is this mean guy that kills all of his enemies and abuses the women that he captures, and he's terrifying man. And then we find out that he likes to wear women's clothing and dance in his private rooms and serve tea parties and bake little breads and stuff. Turns out that he's not this big mean guy, but he's got to put on the airs of being a big mean guy because he's the captain of a pirate ship.
Yeah.
And it turns out when he's exposed and he worries that he's lost his reputation, his crew is like, we always knew you were a bit light. You're still our captain. It's a good movie. It's a good story. That's Stardust. I'll tell you one. Gina Davis did Cutthroat Island. And if you've not heard of it, you're not missing anything. It had a lot to live up to. They spent about $110 million making Cutthroat Island, and I think they grossed about $18 million their opening weekend. They never recovered their expenses. Matter of fact, that movie was made in 1995. It was a dramedy where Gina Davis, her father, had a treasure map tattooed on his head, and when he died, his skin was sent to her to find the treasure, and she's got uncles that she's fighting to find the treasure, that she's racing to find the treasure and keep it. And turns out people don't like those kinds of stories as much in a comedy. That makes a good drama, but it was too serious of a subject for a comedy. Put the studios off of pirate movies for a decade until Pirates of the Caribbean came out. The studios had decided they weren't going to do pirate movies because of that. Oh yeah, I got to get a move on. Bootleg Pete, the Disney character, started off as a bear with a peg leg. He was always a villain. He was a bear. He was a cat. He was a pirate. But he had a peg leg in the beginning. He's one of the characters that existed before Mickey Mouse, and still exists. He's Pete in the Goofy movies. He's the bad guy Pete in the Goofy movies, but he no longer has a peg leg. And it turns out that in the early days when they started with it, it was a good concept, but it turns out they couldn't consistently draw the peg leg, and so they just decided to scrap it because it was too hard to draw and keep up with. And I feel your pain. Today is the 31st of July. You know, in Treasure Island, we talked about it before. Long John Silver did not have a peg leg in the book, but he's had a peg leg in all the movies since. So they gave Tim Curry a peg leg in the Muppet Treasure Island, and it turns out he couldn't perform in that peg leg. So in all of his scenes, he's actually just leaning on a chair or whatever. So let's see here. That was loud. Let's see here. Overhead close. Stop the cameras. There. Why is that off kilter? Vertical image. That should not be that high. It should be like that. So there is my version of it compared to the photograph. Let's see it from my perspective. Robert Newton, not my dad's friend. There was an actor by the name of Robert Newton. Played Long John Silver 100 years ago in Treasure Island. And he is the first one to add the "Arrr, be a pirate, you know. When I talk, it talks like this. And you would be greatly impressed if you knew how well I was a pirate." And he's the one that talked like that in the movie. And he's the reason all the rest of the pirates talk like that. Because it was very successful with audiences. But it was the first time pirates had ever been portrayed like that. And he's the reason all the rest of the pirates go, "Arrr." So that's what I did today. Tomorrow, what do we have tomorrow? Oh. I can't show you because it's a transparent ball. If I show you the ball, there'll be no intrigue. There'll be no mystery. There's going to be more mystery than that because all I can tell you is it's a rabbit. I think it's a Flemish giant. I'll have to research it to make sure, but I believe it's a Flemish giant. Look at the detail on this thing. I believe it's a Flemish giant. Even the sparkle in its eye. But this is what we're doing tomorrow. I believe it's a Flemish giant. One of the best meat rabbits out there. We'll talk about that and more fun rabbit facts tomorrow while I sketch this little hopper, hippity hopper. You know, I should save all these rabbits. I should dig them all out and I should save them for Easter. I should make sure I have those all ready to go next April, May for Easter. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining. That's what I'll be doing tomorrow. So you're going to want to set your notification bell so you don't miss that at 5:30 a.m. Texas time. But thank you so much for joining me. You know, I do look forward to this every day when I get to art with my besties. It is my favorite time of the day, and it holds me accountable to my art practice, and is often the only art I get to do in a day. So I truly look forward to it and spending time with you guys. Did Pamela join us this morning? I don't remember seeing Pamela chatting this morning. But Rick and Pamela, thank you so much for joining me. Shar, thanks for joining us. Mom, Dad, thank you for your help as always. Be sure and tune in tomorrow. Same art. She was snoozing. Good. She deserves that. She stayed up late last night. Be sure and tune in tomorrow. Same Artistic Biker time. Same Artistic Biker channel. And then we dance. We dance until somebody says they see me dancing, because when they see me dancing, I will know that the lag has caught up with the stream and I won't get cut off mid-sentence. Gives you a chance to click the clicky thingies so that you can find out another video, an exciting video just like this one. Gives everybody a chance to say hello and goodbye and ask questions of each other. But the most important thing is to make sure that I don't get cut off mid-sentence, because being cut off mid-sentence is rude.